CataractCoach.com. A leaky paracentesis causes some issues. The incision's too wide and it's kind of poorly placed here. But this anonymous surgeon does a great job of recovering. So watch carefully. Here's the main issue is that paracentesis. Look how wide it was made. It was made very wide. And now injecting anesthetic inside the eye and viscoelastic going too. But you can see there's a lot more wiggle room in that paracentesis. It's a little bit too big. And that means it's going to leak during surgery. Here comes the viscoelastic. So in a case like this, really, since your paracentesis is on that side, I'd really scoot your right hand over for the main incision. You want your incisions to be about 2 clock hours, maybe 3 clock hours apart. So there's that main phaco incision. It's really close, maybe a little more than a clock hour away from the paracentesis. And that's going to pose some issues here. Now, let's see, the rexus looks pretty good. That's going to come across pretty nicely just using forceps here. And looks like the other hand to fixate the eye. I like the ability to do the rexus with one hand as is being done here so that you can use the other hand to help fixate the eye. That looks like a pretty good 5mm rexus. Now, why is a leak incision an issue? Remember, we want fluidic balance inside the eye. Unlike retina surgery, which is a completely closed system, in cataract surgery, in general, we want a little bit of leakiness from the phaco incision. Not a lot, a little. Remember, that helps keep the phaco needle cool. It helps you prevent a phaco wound burn. But the paracentesis is a source of outflow. So when you're doing phaco, like watch this right here, the technique will be fantastic. But the issue is there's one source of fluid inflow from the balanced salt solution bottle or bag. That's it. Whatever you're putting through those 2 side ports of the phaco probe. Now, what are the sources of outflow? Look at the side port. It's leaking tremendously. That's a lot of flow of fluid plus whatever your aspiration flow rate is. So now you've got unstable fluidics. You need your inflow and outflow to be in good balance, but here there's too much outflow. So what do you do at this point? Well, number one, you could increase your infusion pressure. Get that infusion pressure way up. The bottle height can be raised, or if you're using a bag type solution, increase the intraocular pressure, the infusion pressure. Second is that incision's leaking a lot. You could abandon it and make another smaller paracentesis under the clock hour or 2 away. Now, Tom Oding from Iowa, genius in cataract surgery, of course, he's taught me so much over the years. He's also showed that, well, you can simply just come out of that paracentesis and don't use it and have trust that now that you've decreased the outflow, watch this, paracentesis is still leaking. Look how much leaking. If you come out with the side port, come out with that chopper, then the paracentesis will close on its own and you'll restore a fluidic balance because now there'll be only the fluid that you aspirate down the probe and then maybe a slight degree of leakage from the main incision. Now look, the paracentesis is not leaking and the AC stability is much higher. I credit Tom Oding with this idea that come out of the paracentesis with your chopper or second instrument to stop that leak and therefore increase the AC stability from the fluidics. Look at that last piece coming out now, very cleanly removed, and look how stable the anterior chamber is because you've effectively stopped that leakage from the side port. And so in cases like this, yeah, coming out of the incision makes a huge difference. So remember, one source of fluid inflow, that's from your balanced salt solution bag or bottle. 2 sources of outflow. One, what you aspirate down the throat of your phaco needle. That's your aspiration flow rate that you set yourself. But also the other source of outflow is from leakage of the incisions. And if you have an incision, like look at that paracentesis, so tremendously leaky, that's going to upset the fluidic balance. So either abandon the incision altogether and make a new side port, smaller and a little bit farther away, or use Oding's technique here of just coming out of the eye with your second instrument and allowing that side port to seal up on its own, and then just trust in the fluidics because now you've restored that balance. So very important learning case here. Remember, we've showed you this in the past on Cataract Coach. It's okay to recut an incision. If your incision is just that bad, you can abandon it and make a different incision. And at the end of the case here, remember, this extra wide incision that's been leaking so much, it may also be prone to leaking in the post-op period. And you don't want that issue. So what you want to do is really check these incisions carefully, and if there is any leakage, stop and put in a suture. Much easier to put a suture in now than to worry about it on post-op day 1 when you have a flat anterior chamber and an incision that's leaking. So here's the end of the case. Going in with that lens, now going behind it, removing that viscoelastic. A little bit of lens cortex there on the posterior capsule centrally. Can you get that out? There we go. Hopefully, no, still there. But for a resident case, we're all still learning. So very nicely handled on this technique. If you ever encounter this with a leaky incision like that, okay to abandon it and make a new one, or come out of it to stop the leakage and restore your fluidic balance. Thanks for watching.